Sawadee-ka and greetings from Thailand. My name is Siraya Chunekamrai and I'm president of the World Small Animal Veterinary Association. Today, I'm most excited to be introducing to you a webinar I have so been looking forward to learn from. What does it mean to be a leader in the 21st century? Ever hear the expression, what got you here will not get you there? And that is so true in this era of disruption. If we don't disrupt ourselves, unlearn and relearn, we may not be part of any new future. Our main speaker tonight is Richard Casey, president of the UK's Veterinary Management Group, an association representing those in leadership and management roles in the veterinary sector. He holds an executive MBA, postgraduate certificate in strategic management and leadership, and diploma in learning and development practice. He will be sharing with us key issues related to what we should prioritize as leadership skills and mindset. In addition, we will be joined by 3 panelists, world leaders, whom I am so proud to know as friends and colleagues. Dr. Olatunji Nasir, owner of the most advanced practice in Nigeria. He is current president of the Commonwealth Veterinary Association, member representative to the WSAVA for the Small Animal Veterinary Association of Nigeria, and serves on the WSAVA Continuing Education Committee. Dr. Joy Santos, one amazing powerhouse leader from the Philippines. She not only owns her multiple location practices, she also has been past president of both national veterinary associations in the Philippines, PAHA and PVMA, as well as volunteer time for the WSAVA Foundation. And lastly, Dr. Guillermina Manigot has worked extensively for the development of the veterinary profession in Latin America, in Argentina, as well as its association Aviaca, and she now serves on the WSAVA Congress Steering Committee. So, no more lengthy talk from me. I want you to hear from these leaders who, to me, they may seem like only one small match, but they all can light up an explosion. Over to you, Rich.
Thank you, Siraya, for that lovely introduction. I'm just going to shortly share my screens. If you give me a moment while I just adjust them over. So hopefully everybody, that should now be visible. Well, my slideshow is now visible. So I wanted to just kick off with recently I viewed an online article by Harvard Business Review, which talked about how we can inspire our teams and people in our communities, and it outlined in order to do that we need to share more of ourselves. So what Siraya did was very much outline my very professional biography. In terms of me, I'm Richard Casey, president of the Veterinary Management Group. I also then work full-time for Blue Cross, an animal welfare charity in the UK, as head of clinical development. So it's my job to find new ways to help people in poverty access veterinary care across the country. I've worked in the veterinary industry for just over 10 years in the UK, and I can certainly say that it wasn't something I necessarily intended to do when I left school, but it certainly is a route I have not looked back on since I found myself within it. A little bit about me and me as an individual and human. You can see on the screen that is Amy, my 9-year-old Westie. I am an openly gay man and have been since a teenager. I have suffered from anxiety and depression most of my adult life and still do to this day. And if you can't tell by the accent or are wondering where it's from, I'm based in South Wales in the UK at the moment. So, as you said, we are experiencing some challenges in the UK and worldwide when it comes to the forces affecting our colleagues, clients, and patients. And collectively, that means then we have got a problem to solve together. Now, back in 2019, WSAVA released a first survey of its kind, highlighting the well-being issues affecting veterinary professionals across the world. And I've highlighted there some of the key takeouts for it. That the findings show that stress and diminished well-being are a problem for all members of the veterinary team and in all areas of the world. Particularly those most seriously affected appear to be females, younger professionals, and veterinary nurses and technicians. So when we start to look at these symptoms then of what it is are the challenges facing us, ourselves, and our colleagues, the important thing is to understand then what is the root cause of some of these challenges. And what I've done then is just highlighted some of the recent findings, particularly from the UK, from a 2019 Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons survey of veterinary professionals. But first of all, I'd like to ask us all this question. What was it that made us want to join the veterinary profession when we left school and embarked on that academic journey before qualifying? I'm assuming it would probably be your love of people, right? Well, you won't be surprised to know it actually wasn't. So when asked in the 2019 survey of veterinary professionals by the RCVS, the number one thing stated as being the best thing about working in the veterinary profession is working with animals, the job satisfaction and the challenge and stimulus. And it's hardly unsurprising really that the client relationships and the workplace relationships and colleagues feature much further down that list. It is the bond between professional and patient that is the key driver that makes so many of us wish to work within this prestigious industry. And that would be absolutely fine. We perhaps wouldn't have so much challenges if 100% of our time was spent between patient and clinician. But unfortunately, that isn't the case. So when we looked at this same RCVS survey in just over 2 years ago and looked at what would make the profession a better place to work, some of the top key things here are better work-life balance, better financial reward, and less workload pressure. Okay. So, very ambiguous. Those could mean a number of different things. So let's look at it a little bit further then. What are then some of the challenges to the veterinary profession? So the top two challenges to them, as stated by veterinary professionals and surgeons, were client expectations and demands, stress levels, further followed by changing structures in veterinary practice ownership and affordability of veterinary services. So those top challenges there are arguably not necessarily clinically related. They're not necessarily going to be, or one of the core skills to overcome that challenge isn't necessarily going to be our scientific or clinical ability. It is the professional and human factors that are really contributing to these challenges and are likely to be the tool that helps us overcome them. So what does this all mean for us? Well, there is an awful lot of research out there at the moment, both in the veterinary industry and outside, from social sciences, etc., that really highlights and evidences that a 21st century definition of family includes the non-human furry members of the family as well. And if you're particularly here in the UK, we've seen a considerable change in attitudes towards pet ownership. Over 50% of households own a pet, and we really truly see ourselves as a nation of pet lovers. And pets touch human lives in varying different ways compared to they used to many years ago. So this is where we come to then kind of a challenge. If we're aware of some of the challenges facing the profession and facing us as individuals, and if we continue then to focus, and if the client needs continue to get greater, and we then have professional needs that are such as having a better work-life balance, managing stress, anxieties, and resilience better, if we don't start to look at these as a collective, then potentially the victim in all of this is going to be diminished or impacted on the patient needs as well. So we have a new perspective of how we could or should potentially consider how we approach our own leadership and the leadership of others by looking at including the client's needs in the conversation, how we influence and lead our clients and involve them in the conversation. But I'm going to take it one step further and say as well, if we're truly going to overcome the challenges that we and our peers and our colleagues and friends all face on a daily, weekly and monthly basis, then we need to add our peers into this mix as well. So what is it that all patients, all clinicians, the client and our peers require in order to get to and achieve this perfect I'm not going to say storm, but the flip side of perfect tranquil place where all individuals and stakeholders' needs are being met at an optimum level. So what do we do? What do we as individuals, as professionals, and as a veterinary community in our countries and worldwide do to overcome these challenges facing patients, ourselves, our clients, and our community? Well, the answer isn't simple, but what I can say is that the answer is quite succinct. And I'm going to focus on, as you can probably tell, the remainder of this webinar is going to focus on leadership. And leadership is quite a subjective term. And if you ask many people in many different countries and many different communities and many different industries, the response you're going to get will vary. For some, leadership is deemed as quite a hierarchical role. It's held by people who have a position of power, of influence. Well, I'm going to challenge that today and say that actually in the 21st century society, and particularly in our veterinary community, then leadership is the influencing of an individual or circumstances in order to get a desired outcome. And on the screen, what I've done is copied and pasted just an extract from the North America Veterinary Medical Education Consortium. I think I've got that right. I do apologize if I haven't, but they issued a report in the early part of the 2010s that was the roadmap of veterinary medical education in the 21st century. And it lists leadership as one of the core competencies required of all graduating veterinary surgeons within North America. And I particularly like this bit at the bottom where it highlights what, it gives their definition of leadership. And that is the ability to take direct action and influence others to take action. So if that is and that is largely what the definition of leadership that I'm going to continue throughout the rest of this session as well today. And if that's the assumption that we're going to take of what leadership and leaders are, then we're all leaders within the community. You all have the power and the ability to influence the outcome for a patient, a client, a colleague. So whether we realize it yet or not, we are all within positions of leadership. And a recent study by VetX International, very recent actually, earlier on this year, which outlined the 4 trends that are predicted to shape the future of veterinary practice. And some of these are largely not going to be unfamiliar to you. So firstly, we've got moving from an employee experience to a life experience. So really focusing on that work-life balance of the veterinary professional. It's where telemedicine is here to stay. Improving the initial experience for new veterinarians, and also then this final one, which is key for today's session, is emphasis on obtaining professional skills. And what that professional skills refers to is non-clinical skills, the professional human factors and leadership skills that are required to get successful or superior outcomes. Now, coming up to 2 years ago now, I completed my exec MBA with a focus on veterinary leadership. And as part of that, I explored and researched the evidence base for veterinary leadership, both in the UK and worldwide. And it's safe to say there's actually not a lot, if any, literature or documented research on what leadership in the veterinary industry looks like, what makes a good leader, what makes a not so good leader, and particularly what it looks like for 21st century society. So what I set about doing then was understanding, what does our community look for in leadership today? What does great look like? And what is it at the moment that we're not getting in meeting our individual, team, business needs within the veterinary industry? And from this, we at VMG then outlined a suite of 6 leadership, what we call leadership standards for the veterinary community. And these outline the knowledge, skills, behaviors, and attitudes that everybody within the veterinary industry, regardless of whether they're in a traditional or modern leadership role, these are competencies or professional competencies that we all should be able to demonstrate in some shape, way, or form if we're to have successful outcomes for others, as well as successful outcomes for ourselves. And they are developing yourselves as an individual, communicating and influencing effectively, developing others, leading change and innovation, planning and coordinating, and knowing your sector and community. You can download a copy of the full detailed reports at vetmg.com/leadership standards, as well as a self-assessment tool there too, as well. I'm going to refer back to that later on in today's session as a call to action for you to be able to understand how you perform or meet against these 6 standards. So that's the end of my introduction now, and I hope I've been able to paint a little bit of a picture in terms of the problem that we've got to solve collectively within our veterinary community today, and that one way in which we can go about contributing towards that solution is through a greater developed leadership ability within our community. And remember, by definition, we're assuming that definition of leader for the purposes of this session today is anybody with the ability to influence the outcome for a patient, client, or colleague, and ourselves. But what I'd like to do now is hand over to Joy. I believe I'm going to come to you first, yes, and hand over to some of our colleagues and friends who are going to highlight some of their experiences on their leadership journeys, particularly highlighting then some of these competencies that we talk about and how they've developed them, their successes, and what they would do differently. So, Joy, thank you very much for being brave and sharing your story. I'll hand over to you now.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here. Today, I would like to share with you my journey as a Filipino veterinarian leading change through innovation and engagement with my colleagues in the Philippines. 8 years ago, I was a struggling small animal practitioner. I took on the challenge and I was elected as an officer of the Philippine Animal Hospital Association, PAHA. And PAHA is an active member of WSAVA. 4 years later, I also served the Philippine Veterinary Medical Association. It's an umbrella association of licensed Filipino veterinarians with over 10,000 members. So while serving these 2 associations, I can identify tons of challenges. But for the purposes of our discussion today, I will only focus on the top 3, which are the following. The first is the limited access to continuing education. The second is the rabies problem in the Philippines. And the third challenge is the lack of leaders. So for the limited access of education, Filipino veterinarians hunger for knowledge, particularly the continuing education and for specialization in the field of small animal practice. Our associations cannot afford to pay international speakers to come to the Philippines to share their expertise. So for our veterinarians to avail of current information and to advance themselves in the industry, one has to attend international conferences. And these are expensive and they have to pay for their own cost. And not all practitioners have the means to finance such trips. So the second challenge is the rabies problem in the Philippines. The vision to be rabies-free by 2027 is far from reality. Although dog mass vaccination program was in place, the problem of increasing dog and cat population has to be addressed. Impounding and euthanasia of strays were the widely adopted strategy, which is ineffective against such a massive problem. So spay and neuter is expensive, and truth be told, there is not enough veterinary surgeons trained to do low-cost, high-quality, high-volume spay and neuter. So that's the second challenge. The third challenge I recognize is the lack of leaders. Nobody wants to step up and be involved. We have shortage of colleagues who would commit to serve the official capacity to lead the vet association. The small group of officers tend to stay on longer, mostly not of their choosing, but without alternates. There was a no choice. Amidst the difficulty of sustaining a motivated rosters of leaders, the politics derails the association to be mission-focused and strategic in their planning. So what did I do as a leader? First and foremost, I made a firm decision and promised to commit myself to be of service to my colleagues and the association to the best of my ability. So together with the officers, we engaged with WSAVA in 2013. So we attended the Members' Assembly in New Zealand and represented PAHA for the first time. I even shouldered my expenses since PAHA had not enough funds then. So this is the picture of me and Daisy, our first WSAVA assembly meeting. So I also represented the Philippines PVMA for the first time also in the World Veterinary Congress in Istanbul. Both associations were all delighted to welcome us to their fold. It was a heartwarming experience to be officially belong to a bigger veterinary and global community. It opened doors to several opportunities, initiatives, collaborations, and partnerships with big companies like MSD, Mars, and even non-government organizations like Humane Society International, to name a few. So what are the specific actions being done? So through the partnership with WSAVA, the WSAVA Continuing Education Committee headed by Dr. Jill Madison, we were able to conduct several conferences, trainings, lectures, and invited speakers specializing on internal medicine, dentistry, surgery, among others. We ran forum on rabies and One Health with no other than Dr. Michael Day moderating the event himself. And the first global animal relief outreach program to the Typhoon Haiyan-stricken areas in Tacloban was funded by the WSAVA Animal Welfare and Wellness Committee through the leadership of Dr. Shane Ryan. And of course, the WSAVA One Care conducted leadership workshops and team buildings among active members and officers through the efforts of Dr. Siraya. And the partnership with HSI, or the Humane Society International, we created a module entitled Advanced Training on Large Volume, High Quality Spay and Neuter for Dog Population Management and Rabies Elimination. It's a long title anyway. So it has CE points or credit units, and we also integrated in the module the WSAVA guidelines on vaccination, the pain management, and the animal welfare. The 5-day hands-on training is open to all interested veterinarians and were conducted in the grassroots level or the local community. So what are the results of these actions? So with the continuing support through the years, the Filipino vet associations did not only gain financial stability, but also we were able to conduct and support several activities to our chapters and affiliates, and even paying it forward by sending volunteers to outreach programs organized by the WSAVA in Sri Lanka and in South Africa. And then an elite group of Filipino veterinarians are now more equipped in knowledge and geared towards specialization. And I'm proud to say that we are now working on establishing a Philippine specialty group on veterinary dentistry and also veterinary surgeons soon. The increase in numbers of attendees during the local and international convention, alongside with companies marketing state-of-the-art machines, equipments, and medicine. There's also an increased number of new vet clinics and hospitals with state-of-the-art facilities. So the standard of care improved tremendously over the years. And with the spay and neuter module, we were able to train almost 100 veterinary surgeons and now they are neuter in the respective practices. The spirit of volunteerism among the trained surgeons and even the volunteer vet students is just contagious. And even with the pandemic, the activity is unstoppable. Most of the trained surgeons are now mentors. And the increased awareness on responsible pet ownership in the community and the vision for a rabies-free Philippines by 2027 is brighter than ever. So what will the future hold for the Filipino veterinary associations now? I can proudly say that more and more veterinarians are stepping up not only as active members, but as empowered servant leaders, thanks to the inclusive approach of WSAVA and WBA global community, which I believe made a mark to each and every veterinarian to pay it forward. To end, let me share my favorite tagline to remind me of the reason for service. My big why is my passion, my profession. Thank you all for listening.
Hello, good morning. I'm Gili Manigot from Argentina in South America, and it's my pleasure to be here and share my experience in leadership in my area. I'm a veterinarian. This year, it's 32 years. I've received my diploma in veterinary medicine, and 26 years I've been a dermatology specialist, and 12 years as a forensic expert. I've been involved in the development of many associations here in Argentina and in South America, and I've been always interested in developing my profession and involving other colleagues and triggering other colleagues into specialization and getting also working in associations as a means of improving your profession and your patient well-being. The WSAVA has been a great help for us because it has a lot of resources that you can access easily through the web page. And through all these guidelines and help, you can improve your practice and also give access to other colleagues to high quality information. I want to share you my experience through the pandemics. And this started many years ago when, with other colleagues, we saw that there was a need for our profession to start caring about animals in disaster events. Last year, during the pandemics, there was a problem in Argentina with bushfires in many parts of our country. So when this problem started, there was a turmoil in social media about what was going on with animals. And we started receiving complaints from the social media, and many colleagues were trying to help, and this was very unorganized. So I saw the opportunity of working with all colleagues and developing a network. This has been a dream that I had for many years. So I started working with other colleagues, and I saw the opportunity of highlighting some colleagues who could be helping us to develop this network. I had the pleasure of working with many colleagues in different parts of Argentina, and we organized the work in many parts. We started evaluating the situation, and we evaluate which disaster was occurring in which area. And then we try to organize the help to assist animals, coordinate the veterinary help, and start recruiting other veterinarians who were willing to help as volunteers. And we started also collecting money and funds from other colleagues and from the public to help buy the the supplies that we need to reach the animals and the veterinarians in the disaster area. You can imagine during the pandemic, with the quarantine going on, it was really a challenge for us to develop this help, to develop these groups. So as a leader, what I saw is the opportunity to highlight the qualities of some of my colleagues and help them get to the ideas they had and work on that. What does it mean? That we work in a remote mode. We work using telemedicine, and we also work as a coordinating group from our main city, Buenos Aires, trying to help the colleagues in remote areas, which were about 1,000 kilometers from us. So the problem was that there was a catastrophe involving animals and people. There was a bushfire, and there was the impossibility to bring supplies to them. So what we do is to collect supplies, then connect to the veterinarians in the area and see what they were needing for the animals to be treated. The problem we had to face were many, starting with the logistics. So how do we deliver the supplies to the area? And in this, we had the help of many colleagues and also the firemen who were able to access the areas, and through them, we were able to send the supplies. We were also able to contact many companies of transport who were able to donate their trucks and their transportation to bring the supplies to the animals. As a result of this, we had to communicate through different associations and veterinarians in the region, and we were also able to work remotely with other associations. The problem with the communication in these areas was really something we had to face because there were no networks, and there was a limitation to access the area during the pandemics. So veterinarians as health professionals were able to access that because they were considered as part of the One Health community. This is very important to enhance because we work also controlling the quality of food and with water. And you will remember when you were in university that our profession has many, many areas that belong to us and are our concern. So we were able to coordinate everything: food supplies, medicine supplies, surgeons working in the area, and also work with the people there, bringing their food and evaluating the quality of the food and the water for the animals and for the people. As a result of this, we developed a network for the veterinarians, which is ongoing, and we also offer webinars and seminars to develop this area of working. And we hope we will continue improving this network and access all colleagues in Latin America, which are already interested. So my idea is that you can develop any of this help in your country and join together to bring help to animals and use the WSAVA resources to help you get aid for the animals, like the pain management guidelines and also the One Health Committee resources, which all will help you improve the quality of the patients. That is our idea. And if you would like to join us, please send a message to our Twitter for the group, which is Vet for Help, and you will find us there. We will bring you more information on how to work in disaster management. So thank you. This is our experience, and I will pass my word now to Olatunji. Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Olatunji Nasir from Nigeria, and I'm very happy participating in this leadership seminar this afternoon. My story is not too different from what Joyce said, because of our background. Nigeria is a developing country, and what we met at the time I ventured into veterinary medicine was similar to what Joy met. But because I was determined to change the process, certain things happened that we just had to do whatever we could to make sure that people who are veterinarians in Nigeria at that point in time get a bit of motivation. When I started, the profession of veterinary medicine in Nigeria was at the most basic level. You wouldn't see any standard clinic or hospitals. You wouldn't see any establishment with X-ray machine, ultrasound machine, laboratory equipment, and everything. So to us then, especially the younger ones at that time, we were forlorn, we were unmotivated, we were tired even before we started. We were not sure of the future because the situation we met was not nice. And I, because of my leadership traits that I had from maybe when I was in school, I had to do something about it, especially when I set up my hospital. I recruited a lot of our younger colleagues who are not very interested. There's this thing about in Nigeria where most of the people who read veterinary medicine anyway, most of them were never interested in veterinary medicine. They were probably people who had wanted to read human medicine or pharmacy, and they didn't meet the quality of those kind of courses at that time. And then they came into veterinary medicine. So we had an unmotivated workforce. And basically, if I have to apply it to myself, because I really want to go a bit personal, I recruited staff who had this quality and who were not able to do anything. Every task in the hospital fell on me, especially when we're doing surgery. If I wasn't around, no surgery was done. If I wasn't around, no complex procedure was performed. So it was even affecting my own life. It was affecting our bottom line in terms of what we made financially at the end of the month. Because if I wasn't around, nothing was done. So it was not a very good one. And I knew I had to step up my game. I had to step into the old scenario to exactly change the situation. So what did I do? What did I just do? I started organizing courses for those who were with me and those who I can influence, my circle of influence. I started organizing courses for them in terms of how to carry out certain procedures, in a more close-knit fashion, without stepping on their pride and everything. So we had to do this. I started bringing them to conferences that we could get at that time. And at the end of the day, there was a big result for us. Because by the time they started all this and they were into all this very well, I had my time, because some of them cannot perform very good surgeries. Some of them are motivated to know that, we can travel for conferences. The clients are better served now because they are able, to display their confidence and everything. So it was a very nice one for me. And that was one thing that I did that I'm so proud of, that I was able to motivate people. I was able to influence people. I was able to inspire people to action. And now I'm able to delegate because I've empowered them. And it is not just people around my area, in my hospital, for example, because we had at that time what we call Veterinary Clinicians Forum. The forum was able to do everything I had said before for people who are interested. So we formed this Veterinary Clinicians Forum. Even then, we did not know about WSAVA, we did not know about anything, but we were just doing something in-house, and we identified leaders who would be able to deliver lectures and show people the tricks of the trade, and then that was how we started. It was a very rough and humble beginning. To the stage that we are now, I think we've walked a lot of miles and we've crossed a lot of milestones. So just like I was saying that my story also resembles what Joyce said, in bringing WSAVA to Nigeria, for example, I would say I was very instrumental. I was instrumental because I had to even spend my resources to go to Cape Town, to be in Prague. I was in Prague, I was in Cape Town, and then I was in Thailand, just because I wanted a situation whereby benefits from an organization like WSAVA will be open to Nigerian vets. So I didn't bother what was involved. I had to spend thousands of dollars to do this. And then right now, I'm happy that we have an organization of almost 200 and something people who are in SAVAN. SAVAN is Small Animal Veterinary Association Nigeria. And I'm so happy when we have our activities and people are talking very well about WSAVA. People are exposed to WSAVA guidelines now, all the guidelines. And another thing we did, that we started, I don't know whether it's legal or not, It's about utilization of the WSAVA Academy. Now, what we do is every Thursday in our various practices, we gather veterinary surgeons around, and then we pick on a topic at the academy, and we have this large screen that anybody who could not even have probably internet or anything in their area, we all study together with WSAVA Academy, looking at what had happened in several WSAVA meetings before. So this is something that is happening now under the leadership of Saban. And I think it's something that should be commended to everyone, because we are able, at every point in time, we are able to impart veterinarians. Now, a lot of our veterinarians are very confident. They are very, very confident. Everybody talks about WSAVA guidelines now. And it would not have been possible if some of us had not been part of it on the front lane, to do most of these things. So I want to say very sincerely that leadership in the veterinary space is something that has to be imbibed, is something that has to be encouraged at any point in time. Otherwise, we will still have been where we were. If some of us, at that time, did not find it very useful to come to the fore, to challenge and break tables and shatter tables, so as to be able to expose those who are coming behind us, into the real realm of what I call the veterinary medicine. So we are happy now that we're able to do most things in terms of surgical procedures, in terms of advocacy for rabies, in terms of equipment acquisition, because we have formed a cooperative, because we know that not all of us can buy equipment. They are very expensive. Even if we go to China, it's still very expensive. So what we're doing in Nigeria is to form cooperatives whereby members of the association will buy this, and it will be situated in a practice where all of us will be co-owners and co-users, and then we pay, getting back the money in bits and pieces. But then we're able to do what we're not able to do before. So it brings a lot of cooperation, it brings a lot of confidence, and I think in the third world, I don't know whether there's any third world anymore, but in the third world, I think this is something that should be encouraged by everyone, for vets to come together, and do things, and then have their leaders who will always show them the way. Now, we have been able to inspire a lot of people. I'm even very happy to say there are some Nigerians who are better placed than myself. And 5 years ago, they were unsure of the future. But we have been able, to inspire them, to motivate them, to empower them. And then we're able to leave things for them now to do. So that's my story. And it's, for me, I sit back every day and I'm happy about what I see, because I know the future is there. The future is bright for veterinary medicine in Nigeria, especially that of small animal medicine. It's so good. And all thanks to WSAVA, because WSAVA has changed our lives. WSAVA has really changed our lives. And I want to believe that these activities will continue, and then the WSAVA will continue to identify leaders in the various areas in Africa, in Asia, and all over. Africa, we still have a lot to do, so we still need to have a lot of inroad in Africa. And I think by the time we do this, at any point in time, it would be nice for everyone to be on the same platform. I want to be able to practice like somebody in Thailand will practice, like Rich or any other person in the UK will practice, like our colleagues in the US. I want to be able to practice like that. I don't want a situation whereby I know what to do, but I don't have the equipment to do it. I know what to do, but I know I don't have the consumables to do it. I know what to do, but I don't have the drugs, to do them. For the first time in my history, I used Pimobendan last week, because I was able to buy when I travel to somewhere, in Asia. I was able to buy a generic, and it was good. So we have a lot of problems, and that's it. Thank you.
thank you, Olatunji, and everybody for those sharing your experiences. And just like to ask everybody as well to join me in a big round of applause for. It's not always easy to share personal experiences when particularly they haven't always necessarily perhaps gone to plan or are highlighting challenging areas. So thank you for your courage. So what I was wrapped in a way there while I'm listening, engrossed in everybody's experiences. I was making some notes and highlighted some of the, well, 3 key themes and take-home messages for me that I've got from those 3, very powerful stories. One is a potential reluctance to lead amongst our community. 2, a need to work together and collaborate in order to get better outcomes. And 3, that in many areas of the world, such as in Nigeria and Africa, for Olatunji, is our veterinary community is very much developing. So all 3 of these areas are very relevant. All 3 of these themes are very relevant to what we're discussing today, as well as what we're going to touch upon over the next half hour or so as well. I would then say as well that, so when we talk about reluctance to lead, let's challenge what our understanding of the word leading or leader or leadership is. And if leadership is the ability to influence the outcome, then we're all leaders. And perhaps we are holding on to a view of leadership being older, traditional hierarchical structures and roles, which isn't necessarily what it is or should be today. When we look at need to work together and collaborate, some of the concepts I'm going to talk about shortly are going to be linked nicely to that, and how we can develop our professional skills to be more collaborative. And whilst, yes, our communities are developing in some areas of the world, that could be an opportunity then to look at, if we're developing an industry, then let's develop it from the outset as having a skill set that is both clinical and professional skills strengthened. So where do we start then? So if we've got these challenges within our communities that are affecting our professionals and our clients and our patients, there's an awful lot of different forces going on here. And we need to be realistic about where it is that we can make a difference and do so sustainably. All journeys at the end of the day have a beginning, a middle and an end. And as they say in Oz, follow the yellow brick road. So what I'm going to outline for you is an approach that you may be interested in following to highlight your own or document what your own yellow brick road looks like to get to your goal of, to get to your personal leadership goal. So personal development planning, I'm sure many of you are familiar with, or what I'm going to refer to this as is personal leadership planning. And on the screen you can see a circular process which outlines the personal leadership planning cycle. And it starts off with right at the top where we go look at self-evaluation. Where are we as individuals here and now? Then progresses on to setting the target. Where do I want to be as a veterinary leader? We then progress to action planning. How am I going to go about getting to where I want to get to? And Siria's quote from the start I thought was great, because she talked about what got you here will not necessarily be what gets you there in the future. So really testament to the cycle nature of this, because personal development planning is an ongoing process. It doesn't start and end, and then we don't do anything further with it. So moving on then, what I'm going to do now is go through particularly the first 3 stages of personal leadership planning: self-evaluation, setting target, and action planning, because being realistic, what we can do here and now, that is where we should start. That is our beginning of the yellow brick road. And if we don't have that in place, then the likelihood is we're going to be a bit sporadic and knee-jerky in terms of what it is we do. and end up spreading ourselves a little too thinly. So step one is I'm going to encourage you all to check your belief window. What do we mean by belief window? So you may have heard of a term called self-limiting beliefs. Now, these are words, phrases, or things that you may think or keep to yourselves, or phrases that you may hear other people repeating in general professional conversation, at conferences, in online and social media. Now, self-limiting beliefs, there's some examples on the screen, but it's important to consider that what we think and feel to ourselves will have a knock-on consequence. And that is highlighted then in this next section here. So this is based off Hiram Smith's reality model. And I personally refer to it as the belief window, because the window we look out of, it ultimately then dictates what it is, what it is and how we see our world and our professional working world. So if we start at the top, this reality model or belief window works on the principle of our beliefs define how we think, and how we think influences how we act and behave, which in turn determines the outcomes that we get in professional work and personal life. And ultimately then these events, whether positive or negative events, will reinforce in some shape, way or form our beliefs. So I'm going to go through a worked example now. So let's consider then the limiting belief of I am not a leader. It is not my responsibility to lead my professional community or my colleagues or my peers. That is a belief we hold. Then the likelihood is we're going to be thinking, say, something along the lines of that's somebody else's job. Somebody else will solve that problem. In which turn then influence our behaviors, such as we maybe think, I'm going to focus on my clinical skills. I'm going to focus on my surgical skills because that is what's important to me. That's what I enjoy. And fair enough. That then ultimately is going to define some of the events that we may occur in our life. And if we're focusing on one area and some of the impact of challenging client interactions, which, as we've seen from some of the data and information we got from our surveys earlier on, are one of the most significant contributing factors to how people feel about our communities, then challenging client interactions are going to be likely more frequent or have a greater impact on us when they do. And as a result, then it's reinforcing that belief of, I'm not a leader, I'm unable to contribute or influence the outcomes of these circumstances. Now, some of you may have completed a short survey when signing up to, or when you first noticed this webinar being promoted. And it was a short survey asking a variety of questions that how we feel we personally demonstrate the 6 leadership standards that VMG have outlined, but also then as well what we believe the most important areas of focus should be for the our communities in the years ahead. Now I've singled out this one here, which asks the question, from the list of leadership and management competencies below, select 2 which you believe veterinary professionals in your region must get better at if they are to improve your region's veterinary community. As you can see, quite stand out that the developing others is the least popular, the one that people feel our communities need to be focusing less on if we're going to improve the veterinary community within which they work. And that theme actually came across quite consistently in the other questions as well. So, for example, when asked which of these skills are you less confident at demonstrating, developing others was actually scored quite high in terms of not being confident at demonstrating that skill. And the reason why I've picked this one out is because that is quite important if we look at the perspective of one of the key themes that we need to focus on for the years ahead is the development and nurturing of our new veterinarians, but also as well, if we're going to collaborate with each other and collaborate with colleagues across industries, then we are in some shape, way or form going to need to develop the knowledge, skills and behaviors, or influence the knowledge, skills and behaviors of others. So the challenge we've got here is we recognize it's something that, well, the solution to one of the problems that we've got is needing to be better at developing others, whether that is a senior professional or a new veterinarian. But at the same time, we're saying it doesn't have as much of a priority as some of the others. But at the same time as well, we're saying that is something that we're not confident at doing. And this theme here is exactly the same result that VMG Veterinary Management Group found when we did a similar survey with over 300 veterinary professionals in 2019. So if we go back to then this belief window concept, we need to challenge our belief window and say that as a veterinary leader, it is my responsibility to support the development of others, whether that be a new veterinarian or an experienced veterinarian, because we all have different views on the world, and enabling and sharing that knowledge and information with somebody who has a different view will ultimately help them to see things from a different perspective. And there are and will continue to be many different narratives to each scenario. So if we look at the belief window then and how and take a flip side of this, and if we have the belief of I can influence better outcomes for patients, peers, and clients, then how we think is going to be more likely to be along the lines of I need to consider how I could do this differently, how others can do this differently. And that may influence then how we act in terms of investing in professional and human skills equally as much as our clinical skill, which in turn will, in time, then will enable us to have greater confidence with challenging people situations. So step 2 in our process then, once we've assessed our belief window, what I recommend that we all do then is self-assess. This concept of T-shaped skills is something that I've been aware of and looked and researched for a few years now. And in short, what it focuses on is that collaborative professionals, whether they are scientific professionals or social science professionals or customer service sales professionals, those that have greater success have what we call a T-shaped skill set. Now, the depth arm of the T, with the arrow pointing downwards, is the depth of knowledge that that individual has on their specialist subject. For us here today, that will be your scientific clinical knowledge. That is your, you have a strong, deep expertise in treating animals, diagnosing conditions, etc. The cross-discipline expertise then is what we're referring to today as our leadership skills, our professional skills. That ability then to communicate and influence across sector, across industry, and with your peers, clients, and team members as well. So as it says, T-shaped skills refer to a special collection of qualities that make an individual more effective. A T-shaped individual possesses excellent knowledge of and skills in specific areas and is good at working with others in a collaborative way. Now, emphasis there on the use of excellent and good. Excellent knowledge of skills, excellent knowledge of a skill or a subject matter area is very different to having a good level of knowledge in another, because that way you're able to have an good level of knowledge cross-discipline wise will mean you have an understanding and appreciation for what contributes to work or outcomes in that area. You have an understanding and appreciation for the challenges and opportunities in that area. It does not mean being an expert at everything, and it certainly does not mean being an expert at leading and managing. So professional skills for vet professionals. As I said earlier, then, that VMG's leadership standards, which you can view at vetmg.com/leadership standards. These outline the 6 competencies that we have researched and published that states, in order for veterinary professionals in the 21st century to get better outcomes, that breadth of knowledge in leadership can be strengthened by developing these 6 core areas. And as we said, if we're going to, the first place to start is to self-assess. Where are you currently at this point in time? How confident or how knowledgeable are you at these 6 areas? There's a very easy way for you to go about assessing that. If you toddle off to vetmg.com/leadership standards, there is a self-assessment questionnaire which you can complete. It will take you through each of these skills and ask you questions as to how you feel about demonstrating them. And at the end of it, it will give you a personal outline of what it is that you feel you are good at and what it is you feel you could do better at or you're not confident at. That's the first thing you need to do when you're self-assessing. The next is then to get feedback. Because when we look at ourselves, we are looking at ourselves and our performance through one lens. As I said earlier, there are many lenses or many narratives to the truth. 360-degree feedback will enable you to get a much more holistic and accurate view of your performance and how others see you. You can do this in a variety of ways. In its more simplistic form, it is asking people one-to-one to give you some honest comments and critique, both positive and developmental. You can go all the way to the other end and then commission a survey online. There are many training providers that do it for you, or you can download a free copy of a 360-degree feedback questionnaire. I've got a link at the end of this presentation where you can download it and then upload it into a free survey software such as SurveyMonkey, and then send that out to your colleagues and peers. From that exercise, so when you're self-assessing, you will have done it yourself, assessed your own performance, and then you will have got input from others. What you then do to get an overall consensus of your current situation is to identify the common themes that have emerged. I suggest then you pick 2 to 3 common themes that highlight what your current situation is and balance them with good and developmental pieces. For me, my development areas are largely around slowing down to go faster. I'm very eager to get involved and solve a problem. So one of the things I often work on is not immediately jumping in to answer a question, but sitting back, listening to all observations and all perspectives before responding to what's presented in front of me. So step 3 then is, where do we want to go from here? Where do you want to get to? And there is a, one thing that I'm very keen on promoting at this precise moment in time is, because I feel it's more relevant than ever, is that there is no one perfect example of what leadership looks like. We can't clone leaders and make everybody else look exactly, I think, behave and act in exactly the same way. And one of the reasons why that isn't sustainable or even effective is because we're able to tell when somebody is putting on an act or display or isn't being their true self. So when we talk about leadership brand, as it says on the screen, what we're talking about here is you outlining what it is that you want to be seen as by your colleagues, by your friends, by your peers, and by your clients, your patients as well as ultimately your future students and team. So when looking at where you want to get to longer term, whether that is in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years or beyond, ask yourselves these questions. What is it that you value the most? What do you want to be known for? How do you want to personally lead? And what is it then that you expect from others? Having clarity on those questions will really help you then to identify what it is your personal vision for your personal leadership style is going to be. And once you have that, you can then start to identify the gap between where you are now and where you want to be. And those skills, knowledge, and experience that fill that gap are what contributes towards your action plan. Which then brings us all together. It brings us to how we pull this all together. Firstly, and my phrase earlier on that I said is slowing down to go faster. Your personal leadership plan and journey is going to be like turning around an oil tanker. It is not turning around a speedboat as much as we would like to think it is. Second thing I'm going to say then before we start to wrap up is from the list of leadership and management competence. This is another question that was in the short survey that we asked earlier, for those prior to attending. From the list of leadership and management competencies, which two are you most confident at demonstrating? It is very clear here that the developing your own knowledge, skills and behaviors is something that we're all very confident and comfortable doing. So that's great. We can all give ourselves a pat on the back because we're all open to this development and developmental leadership journey that we're going on. And a phrase from one of my favorite Disney films is have courage and be kind. So firstly, if you've recognized there's a gap in your leadership vision, you recognize that there's work to do on personally, then have courage, but also be kind to yourself, because recognizing that need to develop is the first step in that journey, and it isn't an easy first step to make. When it comes then to putting your personal leadership plan together and you've identified your gap of what it is that you need to work on, you then need to just prioritize. You realistically, remember, can't do everything at once. So my advice is to look at your circle of control. We need to focus our energies on what we can control and influence. And your first priority should be then what it is that you can directly control, followed by what you can influence. Something you can do about. You may not be able to make the exact, definitive decision right now, but you can influence the outcome. Perhaps it'll take a little bit longer to achieve it. If it's outside of your circle of control, and if it's outside of your circle of influence, my advice, forget about it for now. Those are much longer term wins and are going to eat up more of your energy than it deserves right now. You may also then want to use a simple table like this. So I call it an effort impact matrix. If something is high impact, low effort, do it now. Focus on that skill or knowledge first. And if it's either in the top left or top bottom corner, do it later. Those are medium term wins. Low impact, high effort, forget about it. It's really not worth your time, energy, effort, or probably money. And then you can pull it all together into this personal development plan template. This is a free download that you can get from the Chartered Management Institute. Again, link will be shown shortly. It's simply, you can do this in an Excel sheet with 5 headings. What do you want to learn? What do you have to do to get to learn that? What support and resource will you need? How are you going to measure success? And a target date for when you're going to review it. So in summary, how we get from where we are now to where we want to get to in our leadership journey, we need to first start with self-evaluation. Where are you now on your leadership development journey? Where do you then want to be? Determining that, well, define that target. What do you want to be known for? And then the next step is that pulling together the action plan. How is it that you're going to go about getting there? And I really like again, what Siraya said earlier. What got you to where you are now may not necessarily be what is going to get you where you want to be in the future. My final parting thought is for any of you that are interested in joining Veterinary Management Group, we are able to offer attendees of this webinar a discounted membership of £135 for the year. It's usually 168. And if you follow that link and complete the form, then that will give, we'll be in touch then to follow up with you on completing that membership piece. I'll leave the links on the screen at the moment for some of the areas that I've highlighted for further reading. And I'm going to end there and hand back to Siraya for a Q&A.
Thank you so much, Rich, and all our great speakers. This is so much fun. I wish we had more time. And actually, we have a few questions, but let's start with something that is a little specific. And if you don't mind, I'm going to direct it to some of our panelists, and some are for you too, Rich, so don't go away. The first one is from Carolina Ruda. This is interesting because actually her question was a little bit clinical because she is facing big problems with parvovirus in distemper in Latin America. I think that Guillermina, you might be able to answer this from a leadership perspective, what advice you would give to this young aspiring leader that wants to tackle this huge problem in Latin America.
Well, thank you, Carolina, for your question. And I think you will have to first assess if this is a problem about not vaccinating or related to ownership of the dogs. Are these stray animals or are these owned animals? And you have to probably be working with your colleagues first in your area, maybe in your neighborhood, then reach other colleagues in your area and refer to your local association for help. Because I think when you work together in a group, you have more chances of improving the situation and evaluating from a logical point of view or from a realistic point of view. So my idea is to first reach your colleagues in your area and then go for your local association for help. That's what I would do.
Can I say something?
Thank you so much. So that seems to be collaborative leadership. Tunji, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, yes, I wanted to say something on that. I think if I want to learn from the experience that we have in Nigeria concerning parvovirus enteritis and all that, I think it's we have found out that the issue of biosecurity is something that owners and vets must take cognizance of. There are lots of people, because the age of affection of this ranges from almost from 6 weeks to as long as almost 20 weeks now, because of the fact of the preponderance of the maternal immunity in the puppies and all that. So one way or the other, the issue of biosecurity is very, very important. You do not just cross boundaries of homes when you have puppies and you go to areas where they have dogs and all that, and then you come back to you without disinfecting yourself and all. We found out that, and another thing we have found out that people vaccinate too early. In Nigeria, people are vaccinating at 4 weeks, at 5 weeks, rendering these puppies useless. They don't have any immunity and all that. So, and then you must know your onions. You must know the parvovirus itself in order to be able to attack the virus. But this is not about leadership. It's just a clinical question. But I think, like Guillermina said, you have to collaborate with your colleagues, share ideas. We have a roundtable every month. We have a roundtable, in which case we pick a case, and then everybody will come and share their experiences on that case. And before we always leave those kind of roundtables, we always have our solutions. So that's what I'm going to say.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. I have to quickly move on because we need time for other questions that just popped in too. This is specifically for Rich. What is the most common limiting factor that you find in people in leadership positions and how to overcome that?
That's a good question. I think I'm going to give two because they're very similar, but they're just they may apply to people. Well, it'll come apparent now. So the first one is self-belief or limited self-belief, and actually the confidence to be, I can't make a difference or I'm not good enough. I think that is one.
Yeah.
The flip side then is though lack of self-awareness. So I suppose somebody believes they are the full package. They've got everything that's needed already to do the job and make a difference. And because of that blind spot, they underestimate their abilities and don't invest in appropriate development and so on as well. So they're both sides of the same coin, really. It's our self-awareness or self-belief, and I think that it's underappreciated how much self-awareness, how much power it can have. And I've certainly, I've said many times over the years, particularly when I was younger, I thought I was perfect. I thought I could do the job and go off and do. And you don't realize until you make mistakes. And I'm very passionate about sharing mistakes because then it lets others realize that, you're human. That's part of the process, is to fall and be picked back up.
Great, thank you so much. That brings me beautifully into the next question that I had and I wanted to ask Joy, is that you never stop moving on to the next project. And every single project has so many adversity. And you have to do and fail and do and fail. What keeps you moving? What is it? What makes you believe?
First and foremost, in life, one thing is sure, and that is change. So every day we change. And we should aim to change for the better, right? So what keeps me moving? My passion, my values, my core values is my guiding light to things I want to do. So, and it's not, and I don't compromise my value. So my core value. So yeah. So if I see negative things, I don't focus on that. And in every situation, worst or bad or whatever, I always try to see the bigger picture, and I always try to see the positivity on that negative situation. And I always believe that there is always good in every person. Even if you see him bad, there's always good in that person, right? So you believe in that. You hold on to that.
Thank you, Joy. That gave me goosebumps. Rich, am I right to say that all the things that you've been talking about in leadership, it's who we are more than what we do? And Joy actually just captured that beautifully.
Yeah, it is. And what Joy just said really links nicely to that piece around, refer to it as leadership brand, but also it's also known as authentic leadership. So being true to yourself. So people will easily see through if you're trying to be somebody you're not. And the unfortunate thing is then, though, is that you may be trying to be somebody that you're not, and that vision of what you're trying to be is probably may be good, but because it's not matching, I refer to it as the music, song, and the dance aren't all matching up. They're a bit disjointed. And when things are disjointed, we question. We think, is that true? Is that authentic? Can I trust that? And the unintended consequence can sometimes be then, if we're not being ourselves and we're trying to be someone we're not, can people trust us? And trust is such a crucial piece in how we lead and influence our people.
That's great. I love that. Okay, one last question, and we have time for that. Let's direct it to Tunji.
Yes.
If you could pass one piece of advice to an aspiring leader in your team, what would it be?
Well, what I would say to any aspiring leader in my team are just 3 sentences. As a leader, you must know the way. As a leader, you must go the way. And as a leader, you must show the way. It's all about empowering people, you know, and then you must be ready to motivate people. You must be able to inspire people. You must be ready to influence people. And that's what I would tell him. It has a lot of expansion. You can escalate it, but you must know the way. You must be able to show the way, and you must be able to go the way.
Thank you. That reminds me of a sentence that Brené Brown said, dare to lead. Am I right, Richard?
Yes,
Yes.
of course.
Okay.
I would like to add that another phrase I would love to use in this case is don't step on sprouts. If you see someone is trying to develop an idea, just be inspirational, coach, accompany, don't be judgmental, just
Beautiful.
inspire, lead, accept, be humble, and accompany them with passion, show them the way. That's the way I think we should do that.
Yeah.
Wow. I think that WSAVA has a sustainable future. Just listening to all you guys speak. Okay, I think that we're just right on the dot. Am I right? And well, I'd like to thank everybody that's joined us tonight, today, this evening, this afternoon, anywhere you are. Thank you, Richard, so much for sharing your knowledge and also offering that wonderful course for anyone who wants to know more. All our panelists sharing your personal stories and journeys. And for everyone that's still listening, if you want to know more, anything about WSAVA, visit our website, follow us on all the social media, and we'll see you next time. Well, we'll see you very soon at our Community World Congress in November. All right.
Wow.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Siraya.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye,
Thank
Siraya.
you.
Bye-bye,
Thank
Rich.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, Rich.
Bye, Joe.